What you see is an IBM Cloud Pak for Data login screen. I can go and log in into the platform as one of the data consumers. We can assume that here in this case, the Alice, who is the user, is a consumer of the data. Now, here I am entering the username and password. This could be, authenticated by the organization's LDAP or Active Directory. So let me just log in. So once the user logs in, he is welcomed by the first screen, which shows the various items or the various capabilities that are of interest to this user. So in this case, this Alice, and she is a business analyst. So here you see that there are various kinds of capabilities. For example, there are various projects, there are various kinds of requests that the user has raised, and then there are various notifications. These are cards that can be customized. On the left hand side here on the menu, you also have the overall structure of how the platform is organized. So for example, there is a catalog, and there are various governance related configuration items like business terms and classifications and data classes. And then there is various kinds of administration tasks. But as a data consumer, my responsibility or my interest is primarily to just consume the available data for my own task. Maybe I want to visualize this in a UI tool, or maybe I want to build a machine learning model after I find a data asset, or I want to look at certain governance policies or refer to certain business terms, and maybe modify them based on the organizational needs. So here, if I am looking for some kind of information, all I have to do is go ahead and make a search here. So I go ahead and do a search of patients. So let me just enter. So I am broadly interested in some kind of a data asset that is based on patients data, because here I am in the healthcare domain. So here, if you see there, the match produces a lot of these results. Now there are various columns. One is like the name, which is closest to what I am looking for, which is patients, and then there are various types of assets. So this could be a data asset, it could be a business term, and so on. And we also provide tagging capability for easy access, and there are various kinds of users that have access on these kinds of data asset. So what I could do is because I am looking for patients as an asset, I could go and look at this patient asset. So here I go into the patient's details. So here what is revealed to me is the patient's data asset, and it shows the size of the data asset, the date that it was added, and it also shows few other interesting things. It shows this particular patient's asset is related to this other asset which is called encounters. And then there are other information like the classification about this asset, which is it's a sensitive personal information, is there in this is in this patients, and then there are also associated business terms along with this Now that's like the overview tab, so that gives me a good idea of what patient data sets is all about. But if I might want to look at the actual data, I can actually go and look at the assets tab. Now remember, I am a data consumer, so what I see is basically what I am allowed to see based on my role. So here, because my role is data consumer, I may not or I shouldn't be seeing certain PII information, like maybe the NRIC number, or maybe the user email address, or the username, and so on. So those things will appear as marked. So let me just go and look at the profile of this data. The profile of this data provides me information on how the data is distributed. So if it's fairly flat, it may not be very valuable, because there's not much variation. But for certain things it's designed. For example, here I am dealing with a fairly ID which is like fairly text, so I don't need much of a distribution here. But if I see here a customer identifier or some other fields, there will be a nice distribution. For example, ethnicity more, there are because of different kinds of races, I see some kind of variations in this data. Some of the data will be profiles are not available for some of this data. That's because these are masked. For example, as a user Elise, I am not allowed to see the NRIC number, so that data is completely masked for me. So now let me just go back to my data asset and see whether it's ready for me to view. So I just refresh the screen, and then I should be seeing the various kinds of data asset, the data values, except the ones that I'm not allowed to see. So here you can see that some of these things I am not allowed to see, so those comes as masked. The others are fine, I can see them unmasked. So this is about this is about how I can view this data, and certain things I am not able to view, for example these, and I am also able to see the various kinds of relationships that this data asset might have with other data assets. For example, I showed in this case it had encounters. That's encounters was something that is related to patients. I can also collaborate with other users. I mean, if I need some information and I might want to comment on this, I can actually write a comment on this data asset based on the permissions that I might have. Now here is a permission tab which will show who are the people that have access to this data, and then it says that there's one member that's have access to this this data. Now this data set I might want to access in different kinds of projects. Maybe I want to access this on maybe I want to access this data set on a Watson Studio project or a Jupyter notebook where I am wanting to build a machine learning model using this this patient information. So what I can do is I can say add this data, add this to a project, and I can choose a project that I want to add in. So I can use a patient analysis project, and I can say add this to my project collection, right? So once I add this to the project collection, I might get this this gets added into the project collection, and I can go to the project. So if you might look at this, the project structure is primarily to work on specific set of data assets or build specific set of models, whereas the catalogs could be available to all the various users. Either it could be a public catalog which is available for all the users, or it could be very specific catalog which are available for certain departments with certain governance policy enforced. For example, some of them could be masked, some of them could be redacted, and so on. So let's now look at how the patient's data can be consumed by our user Elise. So here I have a Watson Studio notebook, and inside this notebook I have this Watson inside this I have a Jupyter notebook. So let me open this notebook, and maybe I can look at whether I am able to build a machine learning model. So here I see that I have embedded this connection, and then when I'm looking at the sample values, you see that because I'm Elise, some of these things come as masked information. So I still have the other parts of the data sets that are available to me, except those ones that are actually masked. Okay, so this is one consumer, this is one data consumer. He went and searched for the data asset, he got the data asset, and he's using that in he's using this information in the Watson Studio project. But what if he was using some other third-party project? For example, I might be using a Tableau, for example, and I want to visualize this data or visualize this relationship with this data asset with other data asset. So so here is a Tableau. We have installed Tableau on this kind of environment, so you can think of this as a third-party environment. where I am able to connect to the same data source, which is the patient, and then it has relationship with encounters, and then I can see that the patient record, again, the things that have been masked for this user also comes as masked. Um, so I can actually build reports, I can build models, but at the same time, because of the enterprise governance policy, I see these things as masked or redacted. Uh, Now it could also be that someone is using a completely different IDE. For example, in this case, I might use DB Viewer, which is again a client that to connect to different data sources. Here I am actually connected to my virtualized data asset through JDBC, and then I see that even this is masked. So what you just saw is how a data consumer can just go ahead and look for information or look for data asset in a catalog, right? And that is tightly integrated with the governance platform. And then you saw that various kinds of relationships that exist, and the various kinds of profiles or the data distribution that the data asset has. So this is the scenario where we are talking primarily about a data consumer. In the next demonstration, I'll be looking at how you can set up this data fabric so that the policies are applied dynamically on the various kinds of assets based on the user roles, and how to actually create a centralized, a single source of truth, so that every data consumers search from this data catalog and governance policies are applied. Let's go to the demo 2, which is how do you set up the data fabric.